Everyone, welcome to the MIT Mobility Forum. This is episode 152. I'm Jinhua Zhao, professor of cities and transportation at MIT. Bo and I will co-host today's special guest, Matt Farah. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. What a treat.
Definitely, yeah. So car enthusiasts are often seen as adversaries to sustainable transportation. And this forum, I know there gets a lot of people who care about climate change, care about sustainable travel. But the question is, can the car fans become an asset to promote sustainable travel, decarbonizing the mobility system? The car fans, they often have this mechanical passion, they're very strong sense of community, and there's very strong cultural influence. So today I have a quintessential car enthusiast, Matt Farah, joining us today, right? So Buwan will be the main moderator. We're talking with Matt. But before that, I want to set up the norm of today's forum. That is, everyone contribute one idea. Here I'm referring to the audience, right? Every audience would like to hear your thought. Type into the chat a comment, a question, your thought to Matt's conversation there, right? Also, before we start, I'd like to launch a survey, just give a sense of who the audience are. So it describes the relation between you and cars, right? The first one is I'm just a car fan. I love my cars, right? The second one is my car is an integral part of me. You can do multiple choice here, that's fine. The third one is, for me, car is just an appliance, right? Just an instrument, get me from A to B. The fourth one, car has a relevance, but I'm disillusioned by the increase in car dependence, car-only society. And the last one, I just don't like cars, right? Yeah, again, you can be both in multiple choices here, right? Let me give a few seconds to gather more thoughts. Now about 100 people participated. All right, let me give 5 more seconds. Okay, let me share the result. Matt, can you see it?
Yes, I can.
I have a 21% car fans, 12% part is important part of me, 43 appliance, 52 kind of disagreement, and 16% don't like cars. That's good. Thank you. So before I give it to Matt, after this 1 hour of section, what will people learn from this conversation? What would they think differently?
The one thing that I am really trying to impress upon everybody, and it's a very simple idea here, is that car enthusiasm and car dependency are completely different things. And I mainly try to spend my time explaining this to car enthusiasts rather than to mobility and urbanists who seem to understand that concept a little bit better. Nevertheless, urbanists in media disproportionately demonize car enthusiasts. And I want to try to sort of be a person who bridges that gap. And so if there is one idea that we take away from this, it's that there are a lot of things that car enthusiasts and urbanists and mobility people do have in common. And there are some common goals that we can work towards together rather than being adversaries because of the commonality of the idea of car.
Wonderful. Thank you. Buang, off to you.
All right. Thank you, Jinhua, and thanks, Matt, for joining us today. I think the 30-second answer you gave very aptly outlined why we're doing this session. And so let me just it's a bit of my personal journey as well. As a kid, I grew up loving cars, liked working on them. I mean, not just cars, bicycles, cars, motorbikes, everything. And as I started working, occasionally I drive to work, and obviously, why is traffic so bad? We just did a lane expansion here. Why is it back to back to square one? And then that's what made me interested in transportation research. And maybe bicycling is faster to work. It was in many cases, or walking is faster. And but I always thought that I was in the minority, that most car enthusiasts are hardcore car guys, my car or nothing else. I always want to go to work in my car. I want to go to the movies in my car, groceries in my car. I thought I was the minority, but David Zipper, who is a senior fellow here at MMI, he did a nice piece with Matt on walkable cities, and Matt's fight for walkable cities in LA of all places, right? Not the most city which is in terms of walkability because of the density or lack of. And that actually got me started on what Matt just outlined, that there are actually many areas of commonalities between enthusiasts and urbanists and planners who want to reduce car dependency in urban areas. I think as an audience, this is a very a lot of lot of academic researchers, a lot of urbanists, planners, folks living in cities, but I think we have to understand that cars, pickup trucks have their time and place, like on farms, in rural areas. You really can't build transit in many of these places, and cars are the only way in Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, that people have to move around. But in core urban cities, and that was the option which a lot of people take, like 53%. That they like cars, but they are totally disillusioned by the car dependency and the car only infrastructure that they are seeing in their cities, which is not the place we should have car only infrastructure. So I think one thing we will discuss in this forum is, how do you go from anti-car to being pro other modes? Matt mentioned, we demonize the car, and obviously car has a lot of negative externalities, but how can we instead of being only anti-car, how can we be pro other modes? So let me just quickly introduce Matt, and I have a few slides, and then we'll get into a quick discussion with Matt and myself. Meanwhile, I think the audience, you guys are very well, keep the chat active, keep the questions flowing, research, comments, everything else in the chat, so that we can have a good audience Q&A session later. So I think all the enthusiasts in the forum need no introduction of Matt Farah. He's a lifelong car enthusiast and journalist. He began his automotive career at dealerships, rental agencies, and his own detail shops before getting into YouTube in 2006 with The Smoking Tire. Matt has a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the University of Pennsylvania, and with a concentration in photography. He is editor-at-large at Road and Track, and has hosted and produced television series on NBC Sports, G4 Network, Speed, and Esquire. The Smoking Tire podcast is #1 in the category every week of the year, and I think 800 plus episodes. Maybe that figure is 1,000 plus now. And Matt entered the car storage game in 2023 with Westside Collector Car Storage, which is a concierge parking facility for your second or third or fourth cars that you don't really use, and can make better use of the space at your house. So let me just share my screen. I have a few quick slides to establish context, and then we can get into the discussion. So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay. So as Matt mentioned, this is, I think, first and foremost, a lot of us enthusiasts, urbanists, just people using car as an appliance. A lot of people confuse car enthusiasm for car dependency, and that is one thing we hope to get out of this session. That how do we detach both of these? In the email that Genoa sent, he shared a op-ed that I'd written in Streets blog, and so all of us hate this. And by all of us, I mean even car enthusiasts and even people who love transit. Everybody hates this. Nobody wants to be part of a soul-crushing morning, evening commute drive, however nice your car is. If you had a nicer alternative, you would take that. If you could walk for 20 minutes, you take that. If you could take a subway that's quick, gets you there in 15 minutes, you take that. But what makes this even more important for car enthusiasts is this is the worst situation to drive your car in stop and go traffic. It's like the worst for for most internal combustion engine drivetrains. Your engine, gearbox, clutch, brakes. It's really bad. So some actually might buy an EV because EVs are much better suited for this, which is a win in my books, right? If you're moving to an EV because there is no other option for your commute, and because of the mechanical empathy of keeping your other cars in better condition, I think that's a win in my books. The other thing for a car enthusiast is they like each drive to be an event. I mean, look at these pictures. I don't think any of you would call this drive an event or enjoyable. So if they could avoid this by any means, they would. I personally, I've been working for like 15 years, and I've always tried to live close by to work so that I could either walk or bike. so that I don't have to, take part in any of these communities. I know that's not possible for everyone. A lot of you have to, and hence, many enthusiasts might actually buy an EV because that's better suited for this. The other, point I was trying to make is a lot of enthusiasts like to drive. I'm not debating that. They may do more vehicle miles annually than the regular car driver, but they would not support the one more lane policy. The road on the left is something that would not appeal to any enthusiast. They will wake up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday to drive to get to this road when the traffic is sparse and be back at 7 a.m. for breakfast at home. I mean, or coffee nearby. So that's typically in most of the car groups that I've been part of, that's how things have happened. Most cars and coffee events start at 8 a.m. and finish by like 10 a.m. in the morning on weekends, so that they're not part of the traffic. They don't add to the traffic. I think they are keenly aware that if they are in the traffic, then they are part of the traffic as well. Some of you might argue that this is not always true, and I would say yes, it is age dependent. But enthusiasts can potentially be safer drivers, and one reason is I think they love driving so much that they wouldn't want to get negative points or have their license being revoked. So if on that boring highway, they would just turn cruise control on and stick to the speed limit. The other thing is a lot of them attend track days on weekends, and to blow off steam, to test the limits of their cars. So if and when on the road they actually encounter a tricky driving situation, they probably are better equipped than the average driver to get the car back online or for panic braking situations. And for people who are not aware of track days, a track day doesn't mean it's a fancy McLaren or Porsche that you're taking to the track. This is a Honda Civic. So people take all sorts of cars to the tracks. It's not about how expensive your car is or how fancy your car is. I mean, I've been to a lot of track days. I've gone with the Honda Civic as well. So it's something which is very integral to the community building part of the enthusiasts. And the last thing is we've all been part of traffic jams where a breakdown or a failure has led to a crash which causes congestion. Most enthusiasts are very aware, hey, I need to change my brake pads in 1,000 miles. I'm due for an oil change in 2 months. Many of them are proactive. Like if the manual says to do a 10,000 mile oil change, they'll do it in 5,000 miles. So that may lead to their cars being in better condition and hence overall in better nick. And the last point before I jump into the discussion with Matt, you guys have seen these slides. We've presented this at in the session forum many times. At the SUVification of the US is almost complete. 80% of new car sales are SUVs and trucks. And the line on top is the weight of SUVs and trucks, which has increased at a much faster rate than regular cars. Again, this slide, all of y'all have seen this before. SUVs and trucks, because of the height of the hood, much more dangerous. Because of the weight, much more dangerous. And because of lower visibility, much more dangerous. And this has resulted in the number of vulnerable road user deaths increasing tremendously. And this is in the US statistics. So that's gone up from 21% in 94 to 36% in and this trend is still going up. So why did I bring this point up? So most enthusiasts I'm not saying enthusiasts don't like SUVs. Many of them have SUVs like kitted out for off-roading, which they use for mud plugging, rock crawling, things such as that. Probably not for doing the school run and the grocery run. Enthusiasts like lightweight cars. They like efficiency. A car, a Honda Civic versus a CRV. So the CRV is an SUV based on the Honda Civic. The Civic is lighter. The Civic is cheaper. The Civic is more efficient. It brakes better. So it has it handles better. So enthusiasts I'm not all enthusiasts, but they would prefer a sedan over an SUV in most cases, and they would prefer the lightweight option over the heavier option in most cases. We have a few enthusiasts on the call, so I hope you get this reference that Miata is always the answer. And why do I bring this up? So the Mazda Miata is a sports car sold over 4 generations from 1990 to it's currently sold, and the current generation was launched in 2016. We've all heard about carb load, how cars have got tremendously heavier over the years. a Silverado, I think, is 40 to 50% heavier from 1990 to the current generation. The Mazda Miata is a very, very successful, probably the best-selling roadster in its category. And look at the weight. It has remained the same. So it's not that this is not possible. The 2016 car has all the safety features, ABS, airbags, traction control, a good stereo, and everything else. It meets all crash norms, and it weighs the same as the car that was sold in 1990. So if we demand it from the automotive manufacturers, I think this is doable. So with that, let me stop the screen share. And let's get into a quick discussion. So Matt, anyway, first quick thoughts on what you just saw.
I'm not sure what I'm here for. I think you just did a pretty good job there. I think that's the thing. That's all. We can just go home now, and that's it. You really nailed it. And about the Miata, not only has the weight not gone up, the price is the same, adjusted for inflation. So neither the price nor the weight of that car has gone up in 40 years, which is wild stuff.
Because the weight was same, the amount of steel being used is, it's not going up, right? Like the F-150 uses so much more material, so the cost has to go up in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's the engine is still a naturally aspirated engine. It's still a basic gearbox. It's still a manual top. It's still, it still has all the same kind of stuff that it used to have, just with a little screen now. So, so yeah, that is a good example. But yeah, I mean, you're right on. So what's left?
Okay. No, so let me start with your personal journey. So how did you, I mean, I mentioned how I, sort of got into, transportation research, wondering, why is it like this? Why does it have to be so bad? So how did your journey start from, being this out and out car guy to actually advocating for, walkable and bikeable lanes and infrastructure in a city like LA?
It really started as soon as I started thinking about it. It became pretty obvious. It was a series of events. I had a Ford Raptor, which is like a big off-road truck that I was just using as my car. And this was back in 2010, 2011. And I had moved into a house and the Raptor wouldn't fit in the garage. And I sold it and I got a Chevy Volt, the plug-in hybrid in 2012, 13. And I was so amazed at how much better my life got when I got rid of this huge truck and got this small, mostly electric car. And it was like, oh, wow, this is small things, not big things. Like, okay, so that was part of it. And then when Elon started talking about how autonomous cars and his stupid tunnels are going to somehow save traffic, which is insanity, you start reading about induced demand, and I started personally witnessing in other countries and other places where you don't need to invent a new thing that doesn't exist to solve traffic. There's a book called Traffic by Tom Vanderbilt. There's also many books about parking, the famous Don Shoup book, Paved Paradise by Henry Grabar. I got into the parking business. And I started learning about mandatory parking minimums and how stupid those are because they force everybody to build so much more parking than anybody really needs. It just drives up the cost of everything for everybody. It hollows out our urban centers, etc. And my business, Westside Collector Car Storage, is designed specifically so that people who want to live in the very dense, most Western beach cities of LA can participate in the hobby of car collecting without needing to buy a giant suburban house that holds a bunch of cars. I'm that guy. I was living in a townhouse with a 2-car garage, and I had 8 cars. I didn't want to move out to the suburbs so I could have all my cars in my house. I wanted to be able to walk to 30 restaurants. I wanted to be able to walk to the gym. I wanted to be able to be around people and stuff, but also participate in this hobby. And so I built extremely dense, high security, environmentally friendly parking solutions for people who want to participate in this hobby and still live in these type of areas. So, my resistance to the BS of autonomous cars are going to solve traffic, which is insane. The learning about the perverse incentives of parking, whether it comes to construction of parking or just buying and paying for a parking space, how perverse those incentives are for urbanization. The fact that we can no longer build some of our most popular types of housing because they will not meet the mandatory parking minimums. The fact that so many people, particularly in my city of Los Angeles, would prefer to take another way to commute to work, but are forced onto the highways because there is no other option. And yes, the fact that in the 15 years I've lived in Los Angeles, traffic has gotten notably worse. And if you've been here longer than that, I'm sure it's crazy. And people like me get up very early and orient our entire lives around the recreational use of vintage cars at a time when fewer people are on the road. And in terms of like car, enthusiasm, I just think it's so much different if you have an old sports car or a classic.
I think all the audio is gone.
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, okay. It's back.
Okay, here we go.
I can hear again now. How about now? Oh no.
Yeah.
How long was I
No,
gone?
we're back. I think we're back.
How long was I
Just-
gone? Seconds? Okay.
10
10,
seconds.
yeah, 5-10
Okay.
seconds.
So yeah, okay. So we get up very early to go drive our classic cars on empty roads. And in my opinion, classic cars are not environmentally harmful. There are so few of them. They are driven so rarely. They are typically well cared for. And so I really don't think that the classic cars are contributing to the problem of the environmental degradation and or really bad for urbanism in that regard. So but usually I'm talking not to urbanists and mobility people. I'm usually talking to car people. And I'm trying to convince car people that you guys aren't the enemy. I'm trying to convince car people that you guys don't want to take their cars away. You want to provide other options for people who don't want to be in their cars. And those people probably shouldn't be on the road anyway. They don't care about driving. They don't care about their car. They're texting. They're so zombified from their commute. And car enthusiasts are passionate cars. I don't care if there's a few less Corollas. I don't care if there's a few less Tesla Model 3s. I don't care if there's a few less bland eggs clogging up the road. I don't care about that at all. And I don't think many people do either. But I think car enthusiasts are nervous that their hobby will be legislated away and are reacting to that as opposed to understanding, like, hey guys, all we want to do is maybe have this little bit of this little city be walkable for those people. Hey, maybe we want to build a train or have a bus lane and get the 10% of people that really hate their cars. They'll just volunteer to be out of their cars. You don't have to force anybody to do anything. So anyway, that's like what I'm trying to like bridge between those two groups.
No, I think that was a good answer. And for the folks who were a little apprehensive coming into this call, as soon as you mentioned Chevy Volt and Don Shoop, I think you converted a lot of them into your fans. Those are the magic words.
Yeah, most people I don't think who do my job are reading the high cost of free parking and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I mean, it's so true, right? We hear all these analogies that the parking space in LA is more than the surface area of Manhattan. You come to think of it.
I bet it's a lot more, honestly. Yeah. I bet it's a lot more. Yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah, parking is a real problem. And in my own neighborhood, there's been a really big fight with these sort of NIMBY neighbors who are resisting upzoning of this very poorly laid out shopping center, which is just an L and a huge, 10-acre parking lot in the middle. And they're very concerned that they might put some housing above it or rezone it for mixed use. And it's like, do you guys not see this giant football field size empty parking lot every single day, 365 days a year? It's wild stuff. So being a car enthusiast that also happens to be in the parking business makes me uniquely positioned to learn about that kind of stuff.
So what do you hear? You talk a lot to enthusiasts. So when you explain this to them, do you get the feeling that they understand that you can still be passionate about cars, but still advocate for fewer of them in cities? Do you seem to be getting
I think that's a hard sell. It's a hard sell. Most people hear that as, well, what you want is for me to get rid of my car. And they go, but the problem with car enthusiasts is a lot of us are really in denial. And it took David Zipper really calling me out about my denial to admit it, because as David Zipper was talking about, that there should be electronic speed limiters on all cars. No car should be able to go over 100 miles an hour. And I advocated the opposite, that cars should be able to go over 100. And he put me in a corner, and he basically forced me to say, why do I want that? Well, because I want it. Because I selfishly want it. There is absolutely no societal good to it. But car enthusiast, want it. And I believe that car in my own hands is safe. And so I think a lot of car enthusiasts, it's kind of like gun people. A lot of gun people, they can two-way here and there and whatever, and tyranny this and blah, blah. What they won't say is, don't take my toys away. I have fun with this. And so I'm one of the very few car enthusiasts that are willing to say, I'm willing to give a little here. I'm willing to say, hey, maybe our trucks shouldn't be so big. Hey, maybe we shouldn't take up as much space individually. Maybe there's other ways to do this. And also, after reading Shoup and all these other people, I realized that the taxpayer is subsidizing our hobby all over the place, at the expense of people who either don't want to or can't afford to participate in that hobby. And that's not fair.
So if, in the future, we rightly price car ownership and usage, by rightly pricing parking, rightly pricing our annual, car registration fees, or maybe, a road user charge, per mile road user charge, given that, now the gas tax is going to get obsolete with EVs coming in, and suppose the cost of car ownership doubles. Would that be taken as a personal attack on owning by enthusiasts, or would they feel like, okay, we were subsidized by the taxpayer, and now we are paying the right price? Looking at Europe and other countries where it's always been much more expensive.
Do you think Americans are really good at understanding when they've had a certain advantage for a long time, and that evening the playing field now is somehow righteous? Something tells me that Americans will not understand that concept, and anything from that is any writing of the playing field will be viewed from the person benefiting from the old way as a theft. And I think that's going to be an incredibly difficult uphill battle. I'm a moron, but if I run for president solution is a weight tax. I think a weight tax solves a lot of problems. The fact that you can deduct on your taxes for a vehicle that is over a specific weight in this country is craziness. That's lunacy. That's still a thing you can do with a G-Wagon or a Range Rover. That's nuts.
So adding to that point, the money which is raised from these increased registration fees, road user charge, parking, suppose it goes to building a new light rail line, things that you can immediately see improving day-to-day life, quality of day-to-day life and people's commutes. Would that then make a difference? Like, hey, I don't need to own a daily. I can just have a weekend car because now there's this new line which has come up and I don't need to drive as much as and I can still enjoy my lives on the weekend.
I think that you would find there are some people who now have to own two cars, because their everyday car and then their weekend car, who who, given another option for commuting, would ditch the everyday car and keep the weekend car. I personally don't own a regular car. Now, I'm a journalist, I'm testing cars, but I commute on a Vespa because I would defend to the death my Vespa 300. Lane splitting is legal in California. It's incredibly civilized. I can get anywhere. I can park anywhere. I get 60 miles a gallon. It's the most fabulous thing on the planet, and it's depreciation proof. I love my Vespa. I evangelize scooters and things like that. And I do like mobility solutions, like bird scooters and e-bikes and stuff like that. I think are also great. I really do. I think there are some people who would benefit from those technologies that don't really know it yet.
So you mentioned, you ride the Vespa in LA, and I'm acutely aware that LA is very, very, very car centric. Large distances, mostly, highway and road infrastructure, which is not very bicycle friendly or even two-wheeler friendly, right? So you mentioned Lime and, other e-scooters and e-bikes, but do you think micro-mobility, like the smaller form factors, has a place in, car-centric cities, or does everybody have to buy something like a Vespa, which can actually do, 50 or 55 miles an hour to keep up with the rest of traffic?
I mean, it really depends on how committed the city is to making it safe to use those methods of transportation. Actually, it's very cool. My commute from my house to my office in the last year, they have not done a protected bike lane, but they have done a painted bike lane with bollards. It's semi-protected. They're plastic bollards. A car's going right through them, but it's something. And they reconfigured a major intersection in order to be better for bike crossing. And it has made me more likely to ride my e-bike as opposed to my Vespa to work. Now, and so other places around LA where they have done kind of a, lack of a better word, half-assed job of doing the bike lanes, where they break apart and they come back to, they're not consistent. People don't use them so much. If you make the bike lanes and the mobility lanes safe, where people go, I know I'm not getting hit by a car today, I think people will use them more. If it's really, you're getting blasted on by an F-150 doing 60 miles an hour, I think that's very scary to most people, and rightfully so.
And so,
and by the way, even in LA, I'm not saying we need to get cars out of LA, but like there are, in any given city, right? Let's take just a small city, whatever. I bet you there's 3 or 4 already very pedestrian heavy areas. Maybe it's a tourist area, maybe it's where the farmer's market is, maybe it's like an outdoor mall that would really benefit from just a very small perimeter car-free zone. Like there's a lot of, I've seen small towns. I was just in a town called Grass Valley, California, Northern California, 20,000 people in the town, very small town. 6 months ago, they closed their main street to cars. And it's the farmer's market, it's outdoor dining. This is a little conservative town. They closed one street. There's this beautiful pedestrian area. All of a sudden, the whole place feels more walkable. It's lovely. So it's not this mass shutdown of a whole city and get rid of all the cars. It's selectively using infrastructure, paint, surface changes, tree arborism, stuff like that, to create an area that's a little less friendly to cars and a little more friendly to humans. You just have to have pockets of that. You don't have to universally do that across every town and city.
Nope. Have you personally taken a role, in LA's like bike lane advocacy groups? Are they surprised to see someone like you show up? Just curious.
I probably could do a better job of participating in my local government. I use my podcast and other means to share my thoughts. I have 4 jobs, and so I don't really have time to get involved in government right now. But I'll tell me where to send the letter. I'll send the letter.
All right. So, we spoke about, bike lanes on car roads. In many places in Boston, like I've seen over the last 5 years, a car lane being removed and it being made into a permanent bike lane.
People get mad at that. They don't like that. The car people get really mad at that.
But I mean, if you look at the math, it doesn't really impact the flow of traffic because, going 15 miles an hour is fine because you're anyway stuck at the signal, 100 feet away for 3 minutes. So on an average,
you are right.
It's the same time. So how do you convince people, and especially car enthusiasts, that, hey, it's good that this car lane is becoming a bike lane because more cars, people who were forced to use cars and who don't want to will now move to bikes. So the rest of us who need to use cars for whatever reason will actually have a slightly better, but not a worse commute.
I think it's crossing the chasm of emotion versus reality. You can stand there with math all day, but they go, this was 3 lanes. This is now 2 lanes. I used to be able to drive 42 miles an hour here. Now I can drive 31 miles an hour here. This is worse for me. And this is just humans. This is just how humans feel that something's been taken away from them. So I do my best to go, you guys, the math is the same. Your drive times are the same, but it feels slower, and that annoys people. Now, in Los Angeles, we had these fires, right, in January, right, Pacific Palisades, Altadena, it's terrible. And I drive the Pacific Coast Highway to Malibu to get breakfast on Sundays. And for all the time I've lived here, it's like a 45-mile-an-hour road. It's 3 lanes each way, and people live on the ocean side. So there's literally garage to highway. And it's the speed limit's 45, but people would regularly do 60 or 70 miles an hour. And that wasn't considered abnormal. Cyclists, there's no bike path at all. In fact, there's a redevelopment plan that I'm hugely in favor of that puts permanent cycling in, but that's later. So anyway, after the fires, they made all of PCH a mandatory 35-mile-an-hour zone, but heavily enforced. And I'm talking about cops every 40 miles. Well, what happened? Well, it turns out it takes exactly the same amount of time to get to Malibu. And rather than going fast stop, fast stop, fast stop, I'm at 31 the whole time. Yeah. And so we knew this. I knew this was going to be a thing, but now everyone can see. Now it's everyone can experience it for themselves, that it actually takes the same amount of time to get there at this lower speed. So there's a major PCH redevelopment plan that includes roundabouts. I'm like, my head is exploding. Roundabouts. It includes protected bike lanes, 27 miles of protected bike lanes. I mean, it's like unbelievable. So anyway, forgot where we started.
No, that's fine. I mean, so one thing that, this is from personal experience driving, I don't drive much within Boston, but when I do, Boston has a lot of narrower lanes, because it's an older city. Mm-hmm. And I like the narrow lanes because, it's like playing a video game because you're challenged to be within that lane, even when the road is curving. I like that. And I hate it when the lane is so wide that I'm unsure, wait, hey, is there a lane marking which has been, the snowplow has just removed it, or is it 2 lanes? Is it 1 lane? I'm unsure when the lane is too wide. And you obviously end up doing
part of this plan. Yeah, part of this Malibu plan is narrowing the lanes by a foot, which there's a huge science backing up narrowing the lanes. And it's actually, so here's how bad our lanes are in Los Angeles. I bought a Porsche Taycan, the electric Porsche Taycan for my wife. That's her car. And it occasionally will have what's called phantom braking. I'm sure you guys know about phantom braking. It's when the ADAS thinks there's something there that's not there, it puts the brakes. And because I'm a journalist, I'm able to speak with engineers at Porsche. It turns out the Taycan doesn't understand how wide Americans' lanes are. And if you're using the steering assist feature, it thinks you've drifted off because it doesn't see the lane markers because they're too far wide. So they have the US spec 2025 model year cars fix this one.
They have to reset the ADAS sensor to like have a wider field of view, which is just ridiculous. It's such a waste of space.
I know, it's so stupid. Yeah.
In precious cities. I'm just keeping an eye on the time to see if we should move to audience Q&A or.
Sure, maybe I can add a few and then feel free to come back. We can go back and forth on this, right?
Sure.
Matt, you can see there's a bloating of questions and comments in the chat. I will share with you after that.
Okay.
So the whole bunch of questions, but maybe we'll start from more kind of a technology side a question, and then to the physical infrastructure design, then to pricing, part of the whole set of different thinking here, right? But first of all, I really appreciate your effort of bringing the two different communities together, right? Yeah, I think so. If one thing U.S. society lacking today is the fact that nobody's able to bring people together here. So it's really applaud your effort in doing so. So on the technology side, right, let me find the specific quote here. I think it's Rude Faust asking about this intelligent speed assistant, right? What's your view of what do you see this technology's application? On what condition they make sense, on what condition it's hard, and how do you persuade the car fan to adopt this type of technology?
So I assume by intelligent speed assist, you mean speed limiters. I mean, a car. Yeah. It's a very tough one for me because, as I said before, I don't have a good reason I don't have an argument that not having speed limiters is somehow good for society. It probably
Just to clarify, his question was specifically for super speeders. Having ISA for super speeders, like people who've consistently, been caught going well over the limit.
So if people are consistent, why? I mean, don't we have a mechanism illegally for someone who's consistently caught speeding over? I mean, don't they get their license taken away? I mean, it's not. I don't think the cars. I don't think we need to punish all drivers because of one person that is a habitual speeder. We can take that person's license away. We can seize their car. I mean, we have legal means to take care of that. That I don't personally think. Let me put it a different way. I don't personally believe that a significant enough amount of damage is caused by super speeding drivers that we need to cap every driver's car all the time. I'm for heavy penalties for super speeding. I'm for whatever we can do, but it is a fine line in between, impeding people's freedoms. And I think there are safe and prudent places to go fast, no matter what David Zipper says, up to and including racetracks. But I also am well aware that it's my own selfishness that blinds my opinion on this issue, because I don't want that to happen to me.
Yeah, and one important point, Matt, you add is the location specific here, right? Depending on how you talk about dense or suburb or the rural area, so that's clearly mentioned there.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, look, if there was going to be some kind of intelligent speed assist, it would have to be location specific, right? You'd have to have urban zones and suburban, and then somewhere outside the 20 miles outside the city, the limiter goes away, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Listen, I don't care what anybody says. If I'm alone in Nevada, I can drive 120 miles an hour safely. Okay. I've crossed the desert a million times. If I'm in a Porsche and it's just me, that's a safe speed. So I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, another question from Joking Alsas, asking any thought on responding to those who prefer drive a larger vehicle because they feel safe, and Henri's analogy of ever increasing larger vehicle does not seem to resonate.
Sure, I think they use the right word. They feel safe. They feel safe. It makes them feel safe. You're not safer. How does it make you feel that if you hit something, you're going to cause a disproportionate amount of damage to that other thing? How does that make you feel? Most people don't make themselves have that conversation inside. They're much more concerned with, well, my kids are in this vehicle, and automakers capitalize on it. Automakers are very much, Elon Musk. The great best example of the worst human alive. He outright said, the Cybertruck, you get into an accident, it will win. Win against what? Who loses there? You know what I mean? That's a car crash is not some net zero event where someone's gonna wins. That's crazy. That's like sociopathic stuff. So there are any number, most in fact, of smaller cars. And you don't have to go drive a little tiny Corolla, a mid-sized crossover or whatever, rather than Tahoe, is just as safe to the occupants inside.
Yeah.
Might make you feel, though. Be careful about feeling things. You might change.
Right. So another question related to the Bloomberg article about you. About you are fighting for walkable city now, right? A question for you is that this is a new awakening in you, recognizing this, or you been long term have been thinking this alike? So what triggered the thinking of promoting walkable city?
I spend so much time in cars, so much time. I mean, for a guy with no real commute, I spend a crazy amount of time. In the last week alone, I've probably been in cars 30 hours. When I don't have to be in cars, the option to not be in a car is an amazingly wonderful bit of freedom. When I am home and I have an option to walk to the grocery store, walk to the coffee shop, walk to a number of restaurants, walk to wherever I might do some recreation, that's pretty lovely. I mean, it really is. And I don't think everywhere has to be that. But I don't think we should have legislation that prevents it. And I don't think we should have to make so much room for cars that it's not physically possible to build that. I refuse to believe that.
Can you give a few examples where this pedestrianized downtown that you feel personally just enjoy?
Sure. I mean, you can talk about parts of Manhattan where they've closed roads, and it's a lovely pedestrian areas now. You can talk about Venice Beach, where I live. It's beautifully walkable. You don't need a car for anything once you get into the town. There's think of like any of the reasons Americans travel to Europe. Like Americans go to Europe and they go, I ate pasta for 5 days and I didn't gain any weight. Yeah, because you were walking everywhere. It's that, and that kind of thing. And it's like, I was just in Venice, Italy. People in Venice, Italy have cars. You know where the cars are? They're on the mainland. They take the little train over to the mainland and then they get their car. Okay. And how do they get to work? Well, they walk. Okay. And that city has managed to sustain itself for 700 years. How about that? So Americans are so ridiculous. We act like there's no other possible way to do it. I mean, it's crazy. We're in a society that is like so intentionally set up this way. And now that we're here, we're going, no, this is just like the way. What? It's crazy.
See, another set of questions about the pricing, right? You mentioned this weight-based taxation, talk about the parking pricing, potential congestion pricing. What would you think as a reasonable pricing structure that car fans will see? Oh, that sounds okay. I'm comply with that.
Sure. Look, you could look at my car collection and you could understand in 5 seconds that I am not an economist. Okay, so I am not the person that you want to ask. I would refer. I mean, look, if there's going to be an inevitable transition to EVs, okay, which is great. I do like EVs, and I hope that one day we can have sports car EVs that are actually fun. We're not there yet, but one day. With a weight-based tax, like weight is is really a problem across the board. And although EVs do solve local tailpipe emissions problems in certain areas, what you don't solve is the tire particles that come into the air, the wear and tear on the roads, not just from EVs themselves, but actually from the car carriers that transport the EVs. You want to talk about something that wrecks roads. A car carrier with a dozen Tesla Model X's on it wrecks roads. That's like 100,000-pound rig right there. And so weight is bad for everything. Whether it doesn't matter what the thing is running. It's bad for brakes, it's bad for tires, it's bad for roads, it's bad for crashes, it's bad for everything. And so while I don't think we should ban huge trucks, and while I don't think we should ban 200 kilowatt EVs, we could pull the levers of incentive and disincentive, just like we do with fuel economy standards now. We could say that if you want to drive a 7,000 or 8,000 pound vehicle down our roads, your vehicle is going to disproportionately do more damage than a 3,000 pound vehicle, no matter what it's powered by. And so you probably couldn't do that on top of a fuel tax. You probably have to, that would have to be the tax. But and again, not an economist, but weight is a universal that is outside of what powers them.
See, another circle on the infrastructure, right? Any suggestion that our road design, the particular intersection design, the ramp design, all those things may impact the safety issue or the speed, the driving habits?
I mean, I believe that you can make things safer with selectively applied concrete and paint. Tom Vanderbilt's book on traffic has a bunch of different examples about this. You can use different road surfaces like cobblestones, like in Boston. You can use road narrowing. When I lived in Venice, this was an unbelievable thing. When I lived in Venice, because I say I lived there, but I moved like a year ago. When I lived in Venice, I lived on a street that was literally called Speedway. And it was called Speedway because it was the first paved street in Venice. So instead of going 5 miles an hour, you could go 10, in 1910. So one-way road, okay? And it's only one car lane plus some people wide. There's no sidewalk. It's an alley for all intents and purposes. And when I tell you people would rip 40, 50 miles an hour up this road, sometimes the wrong direction, it was really scary. It happened all the time. One day, the city came down the middle of the night and painted white lines, signaling the direction of travel and one car width road. They then painted the little bicycle icons on one side and the little pedestrian one on the other side. Paint. One night and paint. When I tell you this problem stopped instantly, people go 20 miles an hour, bikes over here, cars over here, nobody's going the wrong way. It was outside of my garage. I watched them fix this problem overnight with paint. That's all we need. Paint, selectively applied concrete, and the will to put the paint on the ground. You do not need autonomous vehicles to solve this problem. You can solve it right now with the tech we have now, with the willpower to do it.
See, another question, Stephen Zoe asks, in a world where more and more mile driven will be by autonomous vehicle, what will be the feature that appeal to the customers in the future?
Autonomous vehicles are a very funny thing. I've been using Waymos here in LA for fun. I really like Waymos. I think they're a great invention because they drive pretty well, but they get so confused. And there's no way. Like the limitation of the Waymo is so fun because it's actually pretty good at driving. But you can't be like, hey, buddy, my driveway's over there. Hey, man, we're in the back. Can you pull me around the front? Hey, you stopped in a huge puddle. Can you move the car like 5 feet so I don't step in the puddle and get it? So you can make a car as good at driving as possible. But if you can't have that little bit of nudgy communication with that car, it's always going to be extremely limited. And so and I feel very safe in a Waymo. I've never had a Waymo do something that I feel is dangerous, unlike Teslas, which do something dangerous every single time I do. But the lack of a human and the lack of ability to interact with that car in real time is extremely limited. Having said that, I am more confident now than I have been before that a commercial enterprise with a full sensor suite like Waymo will be able to operate mostly safely. I don't think it's going to solve traffic. I think we're a long way from personally owned AVs in America, but and the insurance thing is a whole other question. That's going to be a thing with personally owned AVs. Now, the one thing that really scares me is, of course, surveillance capitalism, right? If your AV is in charge of finding the best way home, and it's connected through Google, and it knows that you've been shopping at Bloomingdale's, it might go, well, there's a traffic jam, we're going to go by Bloomingdale's. You know, the opportunity for surveillance capitalism and the temptation for these greedy oligarchs to implement that without any check in their power is so tempting. We are going to be fed into this capitalist machine powered by our self-driving car that's just no one's ready for it. The level of, you know, how much your data will not just impact what you're seeing on your phone, it's going to impact where your AV physically takes you.
Wow. So
you have no idea. It's a black box. It'll be the YouTube algorithm of driving.
Right. Yeah. So in the last minute, let me ask a non-car related question, right? That related to the communication and be able to connect to the general public. I speak as a faculty in the higher education community here, right? The whole higher education industry is somehow under attack in the US. We find that collectively we fail to present the information, the impact, the contribution to the general public effectively in this, right? So we will have to reflect on this. I think you're very successful in bringing a large audience together, particularly, for example, as today you demonstrate, you're able to talk to different communities, the one you're not to agree with, right? So share with some advice, how to communicate broadly to the general.
You know, it's kind of funny. You told me before you were going to ask me this, and I was trying to find a good way to answer. My audience doesn't really like when I talk. My audience gets kind of upset because my audience is not willing for a lot of them to make the distinction between car enthusiasm and car dependency. So I have an uphill battle talking to even my own audience about stuff like this. Almost everybody hears these thoughts, and if they're used to getting in their car and from their suburban home and driving everywhere, they feel like there is an attempted theft. And so I think, I don't know, I can't say like, you should go on podcasts, you should do this, and you should do this. Like, we need people to understand that what you're talking about is not theft. That what you're talking about is creating select spaces, not everywhere, not universal spaces, select spaces where people matter more than cars. And if you go there and you drive and park on the outskirts and walk in, you can participate in that as well. Your shopping will be there. Your dining will be there. You're going to want to go there. Now, you don't have to do, because I moved away from Venice. I live in a beautiful neighborhood. There's nothing wrong. And now what I have to do is I have to get in my car and drive back to the walkable place and walk around over there. That's literally what I do. It sucks. And I didn't even learn what I didn't have until it was done. And I love my house and I love my neighborhood. But if we move again, it's going to be back to density because that, it turns out, is more important to us. So now you have to get in our car and drive 3 miles back to density and park and walk to participate in that. But we still do. We still do. That is still from here where we want to go for our shopping, dining, entertainment, to that walkable area.
Great. Thank you so much. Time's up. Everybody, please join me. Thank Matt Farah for today's conversation here. Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Someone's probably mad that I like to drive 120 miles in the desert. I don't care. I trained for that for a really long time.
Right. So for the audience, next Friday, I invited Larry Burns, who's kind of a legend in the autonomous industry. So invite him to share with some thought. So for everybody, thank you for joining us. Have a good weekend. I see you next Friday.